friends, welcome back to Food Prep Guide. We are back with another pantry mix meal prep video for you today. We are going to be making dinner rolls, and we're going to be prepping the dough mixture in mason jars, just all of the dry ingredients. Now, our family's favorite recipe for dinner rolls includes potatoes. Typically, a potato roll calls for mashed potatoes, but since we want to go ahead and make this dry mix up in jars, we are going to be using instant potato flakes. There's a slight difference in texture, but it is still absolutely delicious and a whole lot quicker and easier to make. So we're going to go ahead and prep up 4 of those jars, and then we'll finish up this video by actually showing you how to make the rolls from the jar mix. Let's get started.
By the way, if you would like help building your food storage, scroll down to the description box of this video and click this link for our free 1-year food storage plan. We calculated a year's supply of food for one person, then broke that data down into a week-by-week list of items to build your pantry on a budget. We'll send it straight to your inbox. If you're new here, we invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss all of our upcoming food preservation, pantry storage, and gardening tutorials. Now back to the kitchen.
So for this recipe, we are going to start with our salt at the bottom. That's because these dinner rolls are yeast rolls. And when you are meal prepping anything with yeast in advance, you want to keep the yeast away from salt and sugar. So we're going to put the salt and sugar down first. So we need 1 teaspoon of salt per jar. And we will follow that up with 1 tablespoon of sugar per jar. Where's my sugar? There it is. Oh, I need a refill. 1 tablespoon of sugar. Did I do that one? Yes. Here we go. Sorry. Okay, next is going to be our powdered buttermilk. Now, the original recipe just uses fresh milk in the dough mixture, but again, we are trying to get as much dry as possible to make these as quick and easy to make during the week as possible. So I am swapping out my milk, my fresh milk, for powdered milk. And actually, anytime a recipe calls for powdered milk, I use buttermilk powder instead. If you swap out buttermilk powder in your baked goods that call for milk powder or milk, you will not be sorry. It adds such a delicious flavor to pretty much any baked good that I have ever made this swap for. So we are going to be using 3 tablespoons of powdered buttermilk, but if you don't have buttermilk, you can absolutely use milk powder instead, or powdered milk. 2, 3, I know I already did 1 there, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. Now we can put in our flour, and that's going to help keep the yeast away from those ingredients that we need to keep the yeast away from. So for the flour, we need 3 cups of flour. Now, some people use bread flour. I am just going to be using all-purpose flour because that is just what I stock and use in my household. But you can use bread flour if you want. I noticed when I was pouring this out that the flour is just really clumpy, so I'm just going through with a fork and just kind of sifting it just a little bit real quick before I load it into my jars, so that hopefully I don't get any really large clumps of flour. Okay, 3 cups of flour per jar. Whoops. I am going to be using a funnel for this. I've already been doing some baking meal prep today, and so some of my utensils are already covered in flour. That's because I have already done several jars today. And I'm not going to bother washing them just because they're just going to measure out flour again. So 3 cups of flour per jar. Okay, next we need the star of the show, which is instant potato flakes. We need 1/3 cup per jar. 1/3 cups. Whoops. Make sure there's no bay leaves in it. I put bay leaves, whole bay leaves, in a lot of my dry goods. Anything that could be prone to pest, I will put bay leaves in it. Let me use my funnel here. Because most pests can't stand the smell of bay leaves. So it helps kind of keep them at bay. Ha! Keep them at bay! I didn't even plan that one. Okay, 1/3 cup of potato flakes. And now we need our yeast. Let me shake down these jars before adding the yeast. Okay. Last but not least is our yeast, and we need 2 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. This is instant dry yeast. The SAF brand is my favorite brand. 2, 1, 2, 1, and 2. Then we'll go back through with our 1/4 teaspoon for a total of 2 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. And that is it, y'all. Let's get these sealed up and then we'll actually bake some. While I am closing up these jars, I did want to mention that I don't vacuum seal mixes like this if I know that I am going to be using these within 6 months. All of the ingredients in these jars are extremely shelf stable, as is nothing special done to them. They really don't need to be under a vacuum. But if you're going to be using, if it's going to take, hold on a minute, is that a potato skin that got stuck in there? Oh no, it's a bay leaf, okay. Piece of a bay leaf in there. If it's going to be more than 6 months before you get to these jars, I would recommend vacuum sealing. If you are brand new to the concept of how to vacuum seal a mason jar, we have a whole video dedicated to that, showing you pretty much all the options that we are aware of, and I will link that down in the description box below. Let me get all of this cleaned up and we will turn one of these jars into fluffy, warm dinner rolls. Okay, to make these dinner rolls, we are going to use our bread machine, and with bread machines, you want all the liquid ingredients to go in first. So I'm going to start with 1 1/4 cup of water. The recipe that we meal prepped today will make about approximately 12 dinner rolls. Of course, that depends on how big you make them, but the recipe is generally meant for making 12 dinner rolls. So to that 1 1/4 cup water, we're going to add 1 egg. And then to that, we will add 3 tablespoons of butter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be softened or melted or anything like that. You can just plop it in there just as is. In fact, this just came out of the freezer because I didn't realize I was out of butter. Might be kind of hard to cut. There we go. So I am going to cut it into 3 pieces. But honestly, I could probably just get by with not even doing that. I'm not doing them in equal pieces at all. Just going to plop them in there. The bread machine will take care of it, no problem. And that is all of the liquid ingredients. Remember, we swapped out the milk for powdered milk, or actually powdered buttermilk in this case, which means I did need to increase the water, which that 1 1/4 cup of water makes up for using milk powder in that. So after that, we just add in our jar, just like that. Don't need to do any mixing whatsoever. The bread machine will take care of that for us. And then we will use the bread machine's dough cycle. In my case, that is number 6, the program number 6. So I'm going to go to program number 6 and hit start. Whoops, I hit the power button. Hold on a minute. Program number 6 and hit start. And you can probably hear that it has started. I'm going to scoot this over because I've got more work to do, and that was going to be working in the background. We will be back when we need to shape the dough into our dinner rolls. Our roll dough is done. Here it is, nice and proofed. Beautiful. So I'm going to get this out of my way first. I'm going to go ahead and grease we need a 9 by 13 because this is going to be 12 dinner rolls approximately, which fit great in a 9 by 13. I'm going to get that buttered up. so that hopefully the rolls won't stick to it too bad. And then lightly flour my surface and start shaping our dough. Here's one of the paddles. Anytime you're working with a bread maker, those paddles kind of just fall out into the dough. There's the other one. Get that out. I'm just going to try to get this to the point where it's not sticking to me or the surface too bad. Okay, we're just about there. Okay, so we need approximately 12 balls that are about the same size. So I'm just going to keep on halving it until I have 12. Those cut edges get really sticky, so I'm just going to kind of drizzle some flour over the cut edges. Keep on dividing. I should have divided these into thirds. What am I thinking? Oh well. Daddy can get the bigger rolls. Okay, so 4, if I'm doing this correctly, 4 of them are going to be bigger than the others. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need 12. So I'm trying to think, do I want to divide everything into 2 and do 16 rolls and just have them be smaller? But I don't know. Those might not fit in my pan too good. Decisions. I'll just cut the 4 biggest ones in half. Call it a day. It's not a big deal, it's just dinner rolls. Let's see, that one's pretty big. This one's pretty big. Okay. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, now we're just shaping into balls. Doesn't have to be pretty. Just trying to get them in kind of like a ball shape. Put the, I call it the sewn side, the sewn side down. These are going to need to proof or rise until they're about doubled in size. And I would say that takes about an hour or so. I'm going to turn on my oven light. I should have done that already. Let me do that real quick. That's typically how I rise anything that I'm baking, is in the oven with the oven light on. That one looks good already. This one's teeny tiny. I'm gonna put this one in the middle, so hopefully it won't burn too terribly bad. Since I messed up the sizing, I'm gonna have to keep an eye on how they're turning out and maybe take out some of those smaller ones a little earlier than all the rest. This one's really big too. Do I still not have 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? What? Okay, I'm gonna chop this one in half. Oh man. Okay. Do I have 12 now? I think I do. Looking a little janky here, but that's okay. We just need some dinner rolls. I'm going to keep an eye on the ones that are looking kind of itty bitty. But for now, we just need a proof, so these are going to go into my oven until they are doubled in size, approximately an hour. Once the oven has preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, I just plop them in, and we need to cook them for 25 minutes. I'll check them at that point and see if they need to go longer, but typically 25 minutes is where it's at. Here they are, fresh out of the oven, and I always rub butter on the top of any kind of dinner roll recipe. It helps them soften up so they don't get hardened. And who doesn't love a little extra butter? I'm going to let these cool for just a little bit so I can touch them without hurting myself and show you how the insides look. Okay, here's one that I already ripped open just to check and make sure that they were done. And here's how it looks on the inside. Look at that steam, they're still pretty hot. But these are potato dinner rolls. And making those jars ahead of time just makes these so quick to come together. Even the kiddos can do them. That's all for today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.